Buried voice in the dirt. The night was cold, and the ruins of the alien colony lay silent under a broken sky. Once this world was filled with light and voices, but now only shadows and dust remained. The war had ended months ago, yet the scars were fresh. Burned walls and shattered homes stood like skeletons under the moon. Somewhere inside the ruins, under a pile of dirt and stone, a faint sound struggled to break free. It was the weak cry of a child. Her name was Lyra, and she was small, fragile, and covered in ash. Her stepmother had buried her alive, pushing soil and broken wood over her tiny body. The woman whispered cruel words before leaving her there. "No one will hear you, no one will care." But Lyra's voice, though faint, refused to die. She coughed and cried, her chest aching, her little hands too weak to move the heavy dirt. "Still," she whispered, "please, someone, help me." Above the ruined colony, a small human scout ship drifted across the sky. Its pilot, Captain Darius Holt, was on patrol duty, scanning empty worlds for survivors or signs of danger. Most of the time he found nothing but silence. But tonight, something different reached his ears. A strange noise came through the static of his comm system, faint and broken. At first it sounded like interference, like a machine trying to speak, but then he heard it again, soft and trembling. A child's voice, "Help." "Me?" Holt froze in his seat, his hands tightening on the controls. "AI, replay that," he ordered. The ship's AI responded, "Signal is low frequency, mixed with environmental static. No life signs detected." But Holt knew better. He leaned closer, his eyes narrowing. "That's not static. That's a voice," the AI insisted. "Captain, the planet is marked unsafe. Landing is not advised." Holt ignored the warning, his heart pounding. He had been a soldier once, a man who had seen too many worlds fall, too many children left behind. He could not turn away from this, not when he had heard that voice. He pressed the landing sequence, and his ship began to descend through the heavy clouds. Down below, Lyra's breathing grew weaker. Her voice broke again. "Please, I'm still here." Her eyes stung from the dirt, her body shivering with fear. She thought of her stepmother's last cold glance before leaving her. She thought this was the end. But then, far above, she saw a faint light cut through the clouds. A ship descending like a star falling to the ground. The sound of engines shook the ruins, and the dust above her head shifted. Lyra's heart raced. Hope flickered inside her chest. Someone had come. Someone had heard. She whispered again, weaker now. "Please, don't leave me." Holt stepped out of his ship, the air thick with smoke and ash. The colony smelled of fire long extinguished, but the memory of burning was still. Heavy, he scanned the ruins with his visor, listening for that faint voice. The world was silent, yet he felt it like a whisper against his heart. He moved carefully, each step crunching over stone. Somewhere nearby, under the rubble, the child was waiting. He stopped, knelt, and pressed his ear close to the ground. And then he heard it again, soft but clear this time, a tiny voice full of fear and pain. "Help me." Holt's throat tightened. "Yes, little one, I hear you," he whispered, though she could not hear his words. With bare hands he began to dig, pulling away stones and dirt, his fingers scraping raw. Every scoop of soil felt like it took too long. Every second felt like eternity. The AI spoke again in his ear. "Captain Holt, this is not mission priority. Suggest return to orbit." But Holt growled under his breath. "Priority is saving her, nothing else." He dug faster, sweat running down his forehead despite the cold air. His nails broke against the sharp edges of stone. Yet he did not stop. At last, he uncovered a small glow, the faint shimmer of an alien pendant lying against pale skin. The child's face appeared through the dirt, covered in tears and ash. Her eyes half closed, lips trembling. She was alive, but barely, Holt reached down, lifting her tiny form into his arms. Brushing the soil from her hair. "You're safe now," he said softly. "I've got you." Lyra looked at him with weak, glassy eyes. She had been told humans were monsters, dangerous and cruel, but here was one holding her with care. Her small voice cracked. "You heard me." Holt nodded, his voice firm. "I'll always hear you." But even as he held her, his visor blinked red. Movement detected, multiple signals approaching fast. Raiders, scavengers of the ruins, drawn by the sound of a ship landing. Holt tightened his grip on Lyra. His jaw set. He had found her. But now the true danger was closing in. Asterisk a human's choice. The child's breathing was faint in Holt's arms. Her small chest rising and falling with effort. She clung weakly to his jacket, her pendant glowing softly as if it still fought to keep her alive. The ruins around them groaned with the wind, but Holt's visor flashed red again. More signals. "Closing fast, Captain," the AI said in his ear. "Calm but urgent. Enemy units detected within 100 meters. Armed and advancing. Advise immediate retreat." Holt's eyes narrowed, his voice steady. Not without her. He adjusted the grip on the little girl, who whimpered and pressed her head against his chest. Every sound of approaching footsteps made the air colder. Every second felt like the moment before a storm broke. Shapes emerged through the dust. Dark figures with glowing red visors and jagged weapons. Raiders, scavengers who hunted survivors for profit. They had no mercy, no code, only hunger for what could be stolen. And now they had found Holt. The leader of the raiders stepped forward. His metal armor scarred with old battles. He raised his weapon and called out in a harsh, guttural voice, "Human, leave the child. Walk away and live." Holt's arms tightened around the girl. Her small hand trembled as it clutched his sleeve. For a brief second, he remembered other wars, other children crying in broken cities. This was no different, and he knew what choice he had to make. "No," Holt said firmly, his voice echoing against the ruins. "She's mine to protect now." The raider leader snarled, his weapon charging with crackling energy. The AI whispered, "Again, Captain, chances of survival against multiple hostiles are below 20%. Suggest fallback." But Holt only shook his head. "Sometimes survival isn't the point," he muttered, shifting his stance. He knew the odds. He always knew, but some battles were not about numbers. They were about the voice of a child who had been buried and forgotten. And Holt would not let her be forgotten again. The first raider lunged forward. Swinging a jagged blade, Holt spun, shielding the child with his body, and drove his boot into the attacker's chest. The raider staggered back, but more came from. The sides, blades, and rifles glinted in the pale moonlight, their steps like drums of war. Holt ducked into the shadows of a broken wall, setting Lyra gently on the ground for a moment. Her frightened eyes followed him, as if she feared he would. Vanish too, he placed a hand on her small shoulder, his voice low. "Stay behind me, no matter what, you hear?" Lyra nodded weakly, her pendant glowing brighter, as if it answered his words. The raiders rushed in, but Holt fought with the precision of a soldier who had survived 100 battlefields. His rifle fired sharp bursts, echoing through the ruins, dropping 2 raiders in seconds, but the others pressed harder, pushing him into a corner. Every move he made was calculated. Every shot meant to keep them away from the child. Still, they were too many. And every moment brought him closer to the edge of defeat. Lyra, watching, felt her heart twist with fear. She wanted to scream, but her voice was weak. The words her stepmother spat at her before burying her alive haunted her mind. "No one will hear you, no one will save you." But that was a lie, because one human had heard her, and he was fighting for her now. She pressed her small hands together over her pendant, whispering, "Please, help him." Suddenly the pendant pulsed with a stronger light, a wave of energy rippling outward for an instant. The raiders paused, startled, their visors flickering with static. Holt glanced back, eyes widening as he saw the glow. He didn't know what the pendant was, but he knew it mattered. And now he realized why the raiders wanted her. The leader growled, raising his weapon again. The child belongs to us, human. She carries power you cannot imagine. Give her up. Holt's teeth clenched, his voice like iron. Then you'll have to kill me first. The fight raged again, dust rising in choking clouds, gunfire lighting up the ruins. Holt moved like a shadow, striking, vanishing, striking again, but each blow cost him strength, and the wound on his arm burned with pain. Still, he refused to fall, because falling meant leaving the girl to monsters. And that was something he could never do. At last he reached Lyra again, scooping her up in his arms as more raiders advanced. The AI spoke urgently. Captain Holt, an escape route has been mapped. West corridor clear for 2 minutes only. Holt nodded, holding Lyra close. That's all I need. He ran through the broken street, debris crashing around him. The girl's small arms wrapped around his neck. Blaster fire hissed past, cutting into walls and stone, but Holt never stopped. As they slipped into the west corridor, the ruins behind them shook with the roar of the raiders' fury. But Holt did not look back, his focus only on the small life in his arms. She buried her face against his chest, whispering, "Don't leave me." Holt's voice came firm and steady. "Never." The ship's beacon lit up ahead, a faint promise of safety, but as Holt stepped toward it, the ground beneath them rumbled. A deeper sound, heavier than raiders, echoed through the ruins. Something far worse was waking, something the raiders feared even more than him, and Holt realized saving Lyra was only the beginning. Asterisk, the child of ashes. The ruins trembled beneath their feet, a low rumble crawling through the ground, like the growl of some ancient beast. Holt tightened his grip around Lyra, carrying her swiftly through the broken street. Behind them, the raiders shouted in anger, their weapons firing wild shots into the night. But even they hesitated at the sound rising from below. It was deeper, older, and far more dangerous. Lyra's eyes fluttered open, weak but glowing with the faint reflection of her pendant. Her small voice trembled. "It's waking." "The guardians of the ashes." Holt glanced down at her, his jaw set. "What does that mean, little one?" She coughed, her fragile body shaking. "My people, they left something buried here to protect the bloodline, to keep us hidden." The pendant in her hand pulsed again, almost in time with her heartbeat. The AI spoke in Holt's ear, calm but edged with tension. "Captain, seismic activity detected. Unknown structures shifting beneath the surface. This planet is not stable. Recommend immediate evacuation." Holt grit his teeth, scanning the horizon. "And leave them to finish her?" "Not a chance." They ducked into a half-collapsed building, its walls cracked and leaning like old bones. Inside, shadows swallowed the corners. The air thick with dust. Holt set Lyra gently against a stone pillar, kneeling before her, her wide, alien eyes searched his face, fearful but curious. She whispered, "Why? Why did you come for me?" "No one ever comes for me." Holt paused, his rough soldier's face softening. "I heard you," he said simply, his voice steady as steel. "And once I hear a voice like yours, I don't walk away." Tears welled in her eyes, though she tried to hide them. Her stepmother's words haunted her mind. "You're nothing. You're weak. Your voice doesn't matter." Yet here was this human, a stranger, risking his life to prove otherwise. The ground shook again, louder this time, cracks splitting across the floor. From the distance came a metallic roar, not like an animal, but like a machine too ancient to remember its purpose. Even the raiders outside fell silent, their shouts replaced by curses and retreating footsteps. Holt glanced at Lyra. "Seems even your monsters are afraid." Suddenly, from the crack in the street, a massive figure began to rise. Its body was forged from black stone and alien metal, eyes glowing with burning blue fire. It was a guardian. Construct, built by her people long ago, its duty to protect the blood of the royal line. And now it had found the last of that line. The child of ashes, Lyra gasped, clutching her pendant. It knows me, she whispered. It knows my blood. The guardian turned its towering head toward Holt, its voice rumbling like thunder through the ruins. Human. Why do you hold the child? Holt straightened, his body tense but his grip on Lyra firm. Because she was left to die, and I won't allow it. The guardian's eyes burned brighter, scanning him, its massive arms lifting with weapons older than any human war. To protect the child, you must prove your worth. The raiders seized their chance, shouting from the shadows. Kill the human. The child belongs to us. Their gunfire rained across the guardian's stone hide. Sparks flying but doing no damage, the guardian turned, smashing one raider into the ground with a swing of its colossal arm. The rest scattered, but Holt knew they would return. For now, his fight was not with them, but with the trial standing before him. He looked down at Lyra, who stared back at him with wide eyes. I don't understand, he muttered. Why do I need to prove myself? Lyra's voice shook, but it carried a strength far older than her years. Because my people believed only the worthy could protect the royal blood. And now you are being tested. The guardian raised a glowing spear of energy, driving it into the ground, sending a wave of force that knocked Holt back. He shielded Lyra with his body, rolling across the dirt. Pain shot through his ribs, but he pushed himself up, his rifle raised. The AI warned, Captain Holt, weapon efficiency against target is below 10%. Suggest withdrawal. Holt spat blood onto the ground, his eyes burning with defiance. Not leaving her, he fired anyway, bursts of plasma striking the guardian's chest. The creature barely flinched. It stepped forward, each stomp shaking the ruins, its voice booming. You are fragile, human. Your strength is nothing. Why do you fight for her? Holt's hands tightened on his weapon, his voice raw but powerful. Because no one else will. Because her voice matters. Because she's a child who deserves to live. For a moment, the guardian froze, its glowing eyes flickering as if considering his words. Lyra pressed her pendant tightly, tears streaming down her ash-stained face. Please, listen to him. He saved me. He is not like the others. The guardian lowered its weapon slightly, the fire in its eyes dimming. And protect her, human. For the galaxy will hunt her, and only those with hearts of iron will stand. The ground stopped shaking. The great machine stepped aside. Guarding them instead of attacking, Holt exhaled slowly, his arm trembling from pain. But he still managed a small smile at Lyra. Looks like you're stuck with me, kid, he said. Lyra reached out, her tiny fingers clutching his hand. For the first time in her short life, she felt safe. But as the guardian's shadow loomed over them, Holt knew safety was only an illusion. The galaxy would not stop, the raiders would not stop, and the secret she carried would bring even greater enemies. Still, he had made his choice, and he would not turn back. Because in the ashes of a forgotten world, one human had heard a buried voice, and now that voice would change everything. Asterisk the chase through shadows. The ruins were quiet for a moment. But Holt knew it was the kind of silence that never lasted. The guardian had stepped back into the broken earth, its massive body sinking slowly until only its glowing eyes remained above the rubble. It had chosen not to destroy Holt, but its words still burned in his mind. Protect her, human, for the galaxy will hunt her. Lyra leaned weakly against him, her small fingers clutching his sleeve. Her pendant still glowed, but its light was dim now. As if saving its last strength, her voice was small, almost a whisper. They will come again. They will never stop. Holt looked down at her, his jaw hard. Then we don't stop either. The AI spoke in his ear, its voice crisp. Captain Holt, Raider signatures regrouping East Sector, 20 hostiles, armed and advancing. Holt scanned the shadows around the ruins. Dark shapes flickered between the walls, their movements quick, their eyes burning red in the distance. He pulled Lyra into his arms again, her body light as air. "Stay with me, little one, we're moving." They slipped into the collapsed corridors of the old city, the broken walls forming a maze of jagged stone and steel. The night pressed close, shadows stretching long, and every echo sounded like footsteps behind them. Holt's boots crunched over glass. Every sound too loud, too sharp. He moved fast but careful, his soldier's instincts alive. Every ruined hallway felt like a trap, every corner a danger waiting. Lyra buried her face against his chest, whispering, "They know who I am." Her voice shook. "My stepmother told them. Told them everything, that I was the last, that I carried the blood." Holt's heart tightened. So that was it. The stepmother had not only tried to kill her, but had betrayed her to hunters who would use her bloodline for power. He whispered, "Back, steady and strong. They don't get to decide your fate, you do." Behind them, voices echoed through the ruins, harsh alien tongues shouting orders. The glow of weapons lit up the dark like ghostly flames. The raiders were close too. Close, Holt pressed himself against a wall, his eyes scanning the path ahead. His ship was still 2 sectors away, far beyond the twisting maze. They would have to survive the hunt to reach it. The AI whispered, "Alternate path detected. Underground tunnel system beneath ruins. Unstable, but may lead west." Holt nodded, his grip firm on Lyra. "Show me." The ground shook again as weapons fire blasted behind them. Stones rained down from broken ceilings, and Lyra screamed softly, her voice muffled against Holt's chest. He sprinted forward, dodging falling rubble, every step a race against death. The shadows seemed alive, whispering, pulling them deeper. They reached a shattered stairwell leading into the ground. Rust and ash covered the steps, the air heavy with damp rot. Holt looked down, frowning. The darkness below was thick and alive with echoes. But above, raiders closed in fast. He muttered, "Down we go," and carried her into the black. The tunnel swallowed them, narrow and suffocating. Every sound carried far, every drip of water echoed like thunder. Lyra clung to him, whispering, "It's like the tombs, the ones we were told to fear." Holt kept moving, his voice low and calm. "You've got me now. Fear doesn't get a vote." The deeper they went, the more the walls glowed faintly. Strange alien markings etched into the stone. Lyra's pendant responded, its light pulsing in rhythm with the carvings. Her voice trembled. "This was made by my ancestors. It leads to something hidden." Holt frowned, but he didn't slow. If it was hidden, it might also be salvation or another danger waiting. Suddenly, blaster fire rained into the tunnel from above. Raiders pouring in after them, their red visors cut through the dark like burning eyes. "Run!" Holt shouted, his boots slamming against the stone floor. The tunnel shook as explosions ripped the walls, dust choking the air. Lyra cried out, clutching her pendant, the glow flaring brighter. A hidden door slid open in the wall. Old mechanisms grinding to life. Without hesitation, Holt pushed through, carrying her into the secret passage. The door sealed behind them with a heavy crash, cutting off the raiders' fire. Darkness surrounded them again, but this time it was not empty. Ahead stretched a long corridor filled with crystal light, the walls humming softly. Lyra's pendant glowed in answer. Stronger now, she whispered, her voice trembling but filled with awe. This is the path of the blood, the place only my family could enter." Holt's breath came heavy, his chest burning from the run, but his eyes were steady. "Then it's where we go," he said. Behind them, the raiders pounded at the sealed door, their voices echoing in rage, but Holt didn't look back. For the first time, he felt the truth. This child was more than just a survivor. She was the key to something old, something powerful, and that was why the galaxy would never leave her alone. He shifted her weight in his arms, his voice quiet but strong. "Don't worry, Lyra. Shadows can chase us, but they'll never catch. Use if I stand in the way." Her eyes, though tired and full of fear, shone with something new trust. The girl who had once been buried under dirt now held on to the one man who refused to let her vanish again. The corridor stretched ahead into the unknown, glowing with secrets waiting to be uncovered, and behind, the pounding of enemies grew louder. The chase was not over, it had only begun. Asterisk, a human's defiance. The corridor of crystal light stretched endlessly ahead, its walls glowing with strange energy that hummed with every step Holt took. The air was thick, ancient, carrying the weight of voices long dead. Lyra clung to him, her pendant pulsing in time with the walls, as if the place itself recognized her. But behind them, the pounding grew louder, the raiders breaking through. The sealed door, their roars echoing like a storm in the dark. The AI whispered sharply in Holt's ear. "Multiple hostiles approaching fast. Captain, 20 at minimum, suggest tactical withdrawal." Holt's jaw tightened, his boots never slowing. "Can't withdraw when the enemy's faster. We need to stop them here." He set Lyra down gently against the glowing wall, kneeling. So their eyes met. Her small alien face was pale, her eyes wide with fear. "Listen to me, little one," Holt said firmly. "They want you because you're powerful, because you carry something they're afraid of. But you're not alone anymore. As long as I breathe, they don't touch you." Tears welled in her eyes, and she whispered, "But you'll die if you fight them all." Holt gave her a tired but steady smile. "Then I'll make dying cost them more than they can pay." The pounding grew louder, the air shaking with each blast against the ancient stone door. Lyra reached out, grabbing his arm. "Please, don't leave me." Holt placed his rough hand over her small one, his voice low but unbreakable. "I'm not leaving. I'm standing. That's what humans do." The door burst open with a scream of shattering stone, and the raiders poured through, their weapons blazing red light across the corridor. Holt rose like a wall of iron between them and the child, his rifle raised, his body braced, blaster. Fire exploded around him, sparks flying as beams cut into the walls, but Holt moved with soldier's precision. Every shot from his rifle sharp and final, dropping one raider, then another. Still, for every one that fell, two more advanced. The leader shouted through the chaos, his voice cruel. "The child is ours. Human, you cannot win." Holt's voice thundered back, "I don't need to win. I only need to make sure you lose." A battle raged in the corridor, the crystal walls lighting with each blast, shadows dancing in furious patterns. Holt ducked, rolled, fired again, his rifle almost glowing with heat. Pain surged in his side where a beam grazed him, but he ignored it, his mind focused only on keeping them away from Lyra. She pressed herself against the wall, her pendant glowing brighter, her lips whispering prayers in her broken voice. The corridor seemed to hum louder, answering her pleas. Holt's visor flashed warnings. Critical ammo levels, 2 magazines remaining. He cursed under his breath, but didn't falter. Every movement was precise, trained, desperate, yet controlled. He fought not with hope of survival, but with a simple truth. He would not give up, not while the child was still breathing. At last the raiders overwhelmed him, rushing in from both sides. Holt swung his rifle like a club, smashing one aside, his fist breaking another's visor. But their numbers pressed harder, blades and rifles flashing in the light. He fell to one knee, blood dripping from his arm. His vision blurring, the leader raised his weapon, aiming at Lyra, and sneered, "You failed, human. Your death means nothing." And then Lyra screamed. Her pendant burst with light, blinding and fierce, the walls around them glowing in answer. The crystal corridor shook as energy surged through it, ancient symbols lighting like fire. The raider staggered, blinded and burned by the sudden wave of power. Holt shielded his eyes, his voice hoarse. "Lyra, what did you do?" Her small body trembled, but her voice was strong for the first time. "I will not be silent anymore." The light wrapped around her like a shield, flowing outward to cover Holt as well. The raiders' weapons cracked uselessly against the barrier, their faces twisting with fear. The leader stepped back, shouting, "Impossible, she's only a child." Holt forced himself to stand, bloodied but alive within the shield, his voice raw but filled with iron. "She's a child. And that's exactly why I'll burn the galaxy down before I let you touch her." He leveled his rifle one last time. And with Lyra's light around him, each shot struck like thunder, tearing through the raiders with unearthly precision. The survivors broke, retreating into the shadows, dragging their wounded with them. The leader's voice echoed as he fled. "The galaxy will come for her, human. You cannot protect her forever." The corridor fell silent again, save for the hum of the crystals and the ragged breaths of a human and a child. Holt turned, dropping his rifle and kneeling beside Lyra. Her small frame shook, the light of the pendant fading as exhaustion overtook her. He caught her as she collapsed, pulling her against his chest, his voice low. "You did well, little one. You did more than I ever could," she whispered with the last of her strength. You didn't leave me." Holt's eyes softened, his words firm as a promise. "Never." The AI spoke quietly in his ear. "Captain, enemy forces scattered, but long-range scans detect more signatures inbound, larger ships, more dangerous." Holt lifted his head, his jaw set once more. They had survived the corridor, but the war for the girl's life was only beginning, and as he carried her deeper into the glowing passage, his voice was steady. "They can send armies, they can send fleets, but I'm human, and humans don't surrender." Asterisk. The forgotten power of the crystal corridor stretched on like a river of light, humming softly as if it carried the breath of the ancients. Holt walked with Lyra in his arms, her small head resting against his shoulder, her body weak but alive. Glow of the pendant was faint now, flickering like a dying flame, yet it still pulsed as if guiding them deeper. Behind them, silence had returned, but Holt knew it was only the silence of a storm gathering, not the end. The AI spoke in his ear, calm but edged with warning. "Captain Holt, scans confirm larger vessels in orbit. Raider reinforcements inbound within 1 hour. Evacuation is strongly recommended." Holt's eyes narrowed, his voice low. "Not leaving until I know what this place is hiding." Lyra stirred weakly, her alien eyes opening. Her voice was soft, but full of a strange pull, as if the walls themselves listened. "This place, it remembers me." Holt glanced down at her. "What do you mean?" She lifted her trembling hand toward the glowing walls. "My ancestors built this sanctuary. Only those with the blood could wake it. Only the last of us could open the way. As..." Her fingers brushed the surface. The crystals flared bright, the hum turning into a low song that echoed through the stone. Sections of the wall shifted, sliding open to reveal carvings and ancient machines buried within. Symbols burned into life, showing battles, stars, and the fall of empires. Lyra's eyes filled with tears. "This is the truth they tried to bury with me." Holt studied the images, his soldier's mind piecing them together. The carvings showed. Lyra's people once ruled vast systems, their empire strong, but betrayed from within. A line of rulers ended with a young child, a girl with a glowing pendant. Holt realized it was not only history, it was prophecy. "She was meant to survive," he muttered, his voice tight. "And they tried to erase her anyway." Lyra's small hands trembled as she touched the last carving. It showed a child standing beside a warrior, cloaked in shadow, the two facing armies together. Her voice shook. "The Guardian told me I would need someone of iron heart, someone not of my People to keep me safe. It was you. For a moment Holt was silent, his chest heavy with the weight of it. He had always been just a soldier, a survivor, not a hero. But now this child looked at him as if the fate of her world lived in his hands. He clenched his fists. His voice steady. Then that's what I'll be. I'll be the wall they break against. The ground rumbled, dust falling from the ceiling. The AI's voice sharpened. Captain, hostile drop pods entering atmosphere. Impact in minutes. Numbers too great for direct confrontation. Holt's jaw hardened. Then we don't confront. We outlast. He looked at Lyra, who leaned against the wall, too weak to stand, her pendant flickering. Is there more here? He asked. She nodded faintly. Yes. The heart of the sanctuary. It holds the forgotten power of my people. But only I can unlock it. Her eyes met his, full of fear. If I try, it could kill me. Holt knelt before her, his scarred face close, his voice calm. If you don't, they'll kill us both, and then the galaxy will be theirs. So we try. She closed her eyes, holding the pendant tight. The hum of the crystals grew louder, the corridor shivering as lights poured forward like rivers. At the far end, a great door began to open, its surface carved with stars, its edges glowing with fire. The sound of the raiders echoed closer, their boots hammering through the tunnels, their weapons charging. Time was breaking apart, every second sharp as glass. The door opened into a vast chamber, its ceiling lost in shadows, its floor carved with ancient runes. At the center rose a pillar of pure light, floating and endless. Lyra's pendant blazed in answer, pulling her forward. Her small hand slipped from Holt's grip as she stepped toward it, her body trembling but her eyes firm. This is the forgotten power, she whispered. The reason they feared me, the reason she buried me. Holt moved to follow, but the chamber shook violently as the raiders stormed inside, their leader shouting, "Stop her! The power belongs to us." Blaster fire lit the chamber, red beams cutting across the sacred floor. Holt spun, his rifle roaring again, cutting them down. In a fury of defiance, he was only one man against many, but his stance was unshakable, his voice like thunder. She belongs to no one. Lyra pressed her hands against the pillar of light, her body surrounded by energy. Her scream filled the chamber as the power surged through her. The runes on the floor ignited, the walls alive with symbols burning in fire and gold. The raiders stumbled, blinded, their weapons useless against the storm. Holt dropped to one knee, shielding his eyes, his voice raw. "Lyra, hold on." Her small form was lifted into the air, wrapped in a cocoon of light. The pendant melted into the pillar, fusing with her. Her voice echoed, no longer weak but strong. "I am the last, and I will not be silent. I am the child of ashes, and I will rise." The energy exploded outward, a wave of power shattering the raiders, their screams lost in the blinding light. Holt was thrown back, his body slamming against the wall, the breath torn from his chest. When the light faded, silence fell once more. In the center of the chamber, Lyra collapsed to the floor, her pendant gone, but her eyes glowing faintly. With its memory, Holt dragged himself forward, blood in his mouth, but his arms steady as he lifted her up. Her small voice trembled. I didn't die." Holt's lips curved into a tired smile. "Not today, little one. Not while I'm here." The AI whispered, "Captain Holt, long-range scans confirm more ships entering system. Multiple factions. Word of this power has spread." Holt held Lyra close, his voice cold as steel. "Then let them come." Because he knew now the galaxy had forgotten the power of her people. But it would never forget the defiance of one human who refused to bow. Asterisk the voice that changed everything. The chamber of light was quiet, the storm of power gone. Only faint sparks drifting in the air like falling stars. Holt knelt with Lyra in. His arms, her small body trembling, her eyes glowing faintly with the memory of the pillar's fire. She was weak, but she was alive, and that was all that mattered to him. Yet outside, the galaxy was already moving. The AI's voice whispered urgently, "Captain Holt, long-range sensors confirm multiple fleets entering orbit. Not only raiders, but Imperial warships, mercenary clans, and unknown signatures, all converging on this planet." Holt's throat tightened, his voice low, so the vultures smelled the fire. He looked down at Lyra, her alien face pale, her small hands gripping his sleeve. "They'll never stop." "Coming," she whispered, fear breaking through her voice. Holt brushed the dirt from her hair, his voice steady as stone. "Then we'll never stop standing." The chamber doors shook, explosions rattling the stone. Distant thunder rolling closer. The survivors from outside had called in reinforcements, and now armies marched toward them. The AI warned again. "Captain, probability of survival against current forces is below 5%. Holt lifted Lyra higher into his arms, his eyes hard as iron. "Good. 5% is still something to fight for." The doors burst open, soldiers poured in, armored shapes filling the chamber with fire and steel. Blasters lit the runes in red, the sound of war tearing through the sacred silence. Holt set Lyra down gently behind a fallen stone, his rifle rising again. His voice echoed through the chamber, powerful and unyielding. "If you want her, you'll have to bury me first." The enemy charged, but Holt moved like a storm. Every shot from his rifle cracked the air. Every strike from his fists broke the enemy's lines. He fought, with no thought of survival, only the truth burning in his chest. No one would take her. Not while he stood. Blood ran from his side. Pain seared through his body, but still he fought. Each step forward was a defiance, each breath a refusal to bow. Lyra watched him, her small hands clutching the stone, her heart screaming in terror and awe. Her pendant was gone, but the light still lived inside her now. And as Holt fell to one knee, surrounded but unbroken, something inside her rose. Her voice, once weak, once silenced by fear, now filled the chamber. "Stop!" The word echoed like thunder, rolling across the walls. The enemies froze, their weapons shaking in their hands. The runes on the floor blazed to life, the chamber itself answering her call. Lyra's eyes burned bright as stars, her voice steady. "I am Lyra, daughter of ashes, last of the line you tried to erase. You buried me, but I still rise, and I will not be yours." The power of her words surged through the chamber, shattering weapons, breaking visors, throwing soldiers to the ground. Holt forced himself to stand, his bloodied form at her side, his voice raw. "You heard her. She is not yours. She is not prey. She is not forgotten." The enemies stumbled back, fear in their eyes, because what stood before them was no longer just a child and a human. It was a force the galaxy could not chain. The leader snarled, forcing himself to rise. "This changes nothing. The galaxy will still come. Fleets will still burn your worlds. She cannot be protected forever." Holt stepped forward, his shadow falling across the enemy, his voice cold as steel. "Then let them come. They'll learn what happens when you push a human too far." The chamber roared with the sound of retreat, enemies dragging themselves away, their courage shattered. Only silence remained, broken by the sound of Holt's heavy breathing, his rifle finally falling to the ground. He turned, kneeling beside Lyra, who stared at him with tears in her eyes. "You stood for me," she whispered, her voice shaking. "You almost died for me." Holt smiled faintly, his voice tired but strong. "That's what humans do. Little one, we don't walk away. Not when someone needs us." She reached out, her tiny fingers brushing his scarred face. For the first time she smiled, small but real. "Then I'm not alone anymore." Holt gathered her into his arms again, rising despite the pain. his eyes fixed on the glowing ruins. "No," he said, firmly. "You'll never be alone again, not while I draw breath." The AI spoke quietly, almost with respect. "Captain Holt, the galaxy has marked her. She is now the voice they will chase, the spark they will fear." Holt looked down at Lyra, who rested her head against his chest, her voice whispering one last time, "And you are the one who heard me when no one else did." As he carried her out of the chamber, the stars above seemed to burn brighter, for a voice once buried under dirt now echoed through the ruins. It was the voice that changed everything, and with one human by her side, it would echo across the galaxy forever. Asterisk.